Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for turning out, and particularly the guy with the greatest jacket ever in the back row. You make everything worthwhile today. My name's Colin Murray. I've worked with Edith for many years, and the friendship has lasted a lot longer. We spent a decade together on Radio 1. So, what was that, sir? Just don't mention the decade high ratings, please. Don't embarrass us. Please don't do that. And we're here to talk about her book, which I'm going to tell you a conversation I had today. I was walking home from work to leave stuff off to come here, and I was talking to a friend using one of those Beats, microphone things. And I said, I'm going to meet a friend tonight. I'm interviewing about her book. And she says, oh, who is it? I said, Edith. She went, all right, good. She says, what's it on? And I said, it's on British festivals. And she said, why would she write a book on that? And I'm like, she was quite rude about it. And I said, well, what do you mean? She had loads of experience working in music. She went, well, what's that got to do with writing a book on vegetables? So we hit on an idea. The second book, which we'll be talking about later in the week, is Edith Bowman's Great British Music Vegetables. But as it is, music festivals, and so much to talk about. How many people here consider themselves festival veterans? Okay, brilliant. We're going to take you on a voyage of discovery over the next while. First of all, Edith, you've experienced festivals as a teenager, as someone in their young 20s with groups of friends, as someone who pregnant, with kids as a mum, married, and as, let's face it, a single floozy. It's so different now that you can read in the book. Festivals are applicable to so many different walks of life now, in so many different situations, whereas 22 years ago when I was 16 and started going, and we're bringing a pram to the festivals I was going to.
They've created or they've set up festivals to cater for everyone, because it's not like we stopped liking live music, but there's so many festivals that they're not just about music. You could go to a festival and not listen to music and experience everything else. Apart from that, if music's not your thing, you can still go to a festival and have a great time. But there's so many now, there is quite literally one for everybody.
The thing about the book as well, which even for all the festivals I've been to, I didn't realise you could kind of go all the time. I didn't realise you could literally go to 3 or 4 major festivals a month in the UK, and Christmas is about the only time that you can't, but they're announcing Glastonbury, so you're already getting ready for next year. In your opinion, are the best festivals of the hundreds that you've went to, ones that are genre specific? So for example, this jazz festival, this ska festival, I know you went to all ones like that, Download, or is it better when they're mixed and the genres are all just fired in all over the place? It mixes up the age group, mix up the people that go.
I think that even when you think a festival is genre specific, it actually really isn't. I mean, Download Festival is a great example, because I think a lot of people have preconception about what Download is about and what the type of people that go to Download are like.
For example, smelly tattooed people.
Emos.
A lot of people say,
the Download festival-goer as a group of people are the friendliest bunch of people you will ever meet. It's the most wonderful environment to go to. And it's weird, because I spoke to a few people who kind of had this preconception, and they had this thing where they thought the Download crowd were scary and it would be intimidating and it'd be aggressive, and it's the complete opposite. But it's down to the individual, because it depends on what type of experience you want to have going to a festival, whether you are going purely to see, if you're only into one type of music, then go to a genre-specific festival. But if you're kind of a bit more open-minded about music and you want to be kind of inspired or learn something new, or even be kind of re-persuaded about a band, because I've been at festivals where I've had an opinion about a band and going, I'm really not into them. Then I've gone and they've become kind of one of my new favourite bands, because in that environment it's like, I get it now. They're actually really, really good.
It's two things, festivals for me. It's the experience over the weekend, and then it's the bands that you go and see. I went to Glastonbury and not seen a single note played. Yeah. Albeit that was during my more lucid times.
No Gallagher's there with you as well, by the way.
Yeah, and I've went to festivals and I've been to Glastonbury and only watched bands across all the stages.
Which do you
there's
prefer?
certain rules of I think I once did Glastonbury where I got up at 11 at night and went to bed at 11 in the morning and did it a completely different way. I always remember walking through 2 or 3 fields, and this is what, it's a lot more experience than I have at Glastonbury, but this is what a festival like that can offer. I walked you go into tents, you don't know what's going to be in the tent. And I walked into one tent, and they had, and I don't even know what time, God knows what time it was, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and it was a Down syndrome theatre. A Down syndrome theatre group, and I sat and watched something that I don't think I've ever seen advertised anywhere, I've never seen before, and it was fantastic. And I walked out and I walked into a circus tent, and Jim Rose Circus was playing. So there I went from that, the guy putting himself through the head of a tennis racket, and then I strolled down the hill, and this is my muddled memory. I strolled down the hill, and the Goonies was playing in the cinema field, and you know the bit when Chunk comes down the, not Chunk, what do you call it? Sloth. Here you go. The classic scene.
Yeah.
When he came down the thing, thousands of people stood and applauded Sloth coming down and saving the day in the Goonies. And festivals for me, I don't really think it matters whether you're singing along to a band that people may consider uncool, if you're all singing along to Yellow by Coldplay, or you're all cheering Sloth from the Goonies, or you're watching some amazing theatre group. It's the community it creates. It's sort of that feeling that you bonded with all these people, I think, is the key, and that comes across in the book of that being as important as the music.
Definitely, and I went to loads of festivals last summer to kind of do research for the book.
I hope so. You wrote a bloody book on it.
And I went one
you
that
didn't
I
go
went
to any.
to.
We're all going home.
One that I went to that I'd never been to before on my own was Festival Number 6 in Wales, which is in Portmeirion. And it's brilliant. It's like this kind of weird, almost double festival where you've got the kind of traditional festival site with the stage, 2 stages, food court, all that kind of thing. And then you kind of go through the back and you enter the actual town and village of Portmeirion, which they've encompassed into the festival as well. I did a ukulele lesson with this kind of 40 other people in the middle of the town square. It was like a made-up song. Oh, okay. And then Tim Burgess from the Charlatans took over the town hall, and he had his whole kind of coffee shop thing going on there with guest DJs, and it was like being at a kind of extended village fete. It was brilliant.
But that's it, and it coming to get your questions on this. That for me is there's 2 stages of festival. There was for anyone in the crowd who's in their late 30s, which is most of your younger. Festivals were different. They were much more linear. You see these bands, you pay money to see these bands. And it was a big deal at one pulled out. I remember going to the festival at Soundgarden pulled out. It was called Sunstroke. It was a major big deal.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be that big a deal these days. So if we take that type of festival first, give me its name again. Festival number 6, which is just some amazing pictures. Looks fantastic. You can throw in their festivals that I think people buy tickets for before they know a single artist that are playing at it. Now that's massively different. That would never happen in my day. You bought it solely in the bands that were playing. There was no other experience. The campsite was shit. The food was shit. The travel was shit. But the bands were magic. Now that's almost been reversed. These boutique festivals, you don't need to even know the band's playing to buy a ticket.
No, and even Glastonbury this year, they only announced the final headliner, The Who, last week. You know, and it's a month away from the festival actually happening.
Well, then, from going to them all, what's the good and bad of the boutique festival? Festival, Latitude, Festival number 6. What do they offer that's good, and what are the things that maybe they can't offer that a big, dirty festival can offer?
Well, the thing that they offer is kind of an amazing, eclectic mix of entertainment. So whether that's watching Beck on the main stage, like at Festival number 6, or a new band called Childhood on the little independent stage, or ukulele lesson, or eating local produce in the food court, or watching...
By that mean your hash cakes. Just say it, it's fine.
Hot dogs, or some kind of like film Q&A in the film tent. So that's kind of similar to Latitude as well. It's like that. Festival is a bit like being invited to Rob da Bank's extended house party. It's got Rob da Bank stamped all over it. It's his kind of personality that is that festival, and that's why it's so much fun. It's hard to find negatives, to be honest, because
they're just more smooth.
Well, they're more, the smaller ones.
Yeah, they're more, I suppose, I don't want to use the word dignified, that's the wrong word to use, but let's just say a bigger festival. Nobody's building human pyramids or lighting fires. That's my point. You know what I mean? There's not really that edge.
So yeah, exactly.
There's a mix, isn't there? And they both serve a purpose still, I think.
They do, and like you were saying about that idea of notion of like it's just about the bands. You know, you watch the bands and then you kind of go on the next one. Reading's still like that. Reading is purely about what's on all those stages, whether it's the lock-up stage, the Radio 1 NME stage, or the main stage. Tea in the Park's like that as well, about to start on its 3rd site, brand new site that it just got the license for. That Tea's just like that, it's just about the music. So there are festivals that it's purely about the music, and then you have these other things that are this kind of cultural kind of whirlwind.
Glastonbury is the elephant in the room. That's the cliched best festival ever. We worked on it together for Radio 1, just before the fence went up, the big wall, and then after. And I think it's been lost a little bit that at that stage when they took a year off and put up that fence, and a lot of people say it is the commercialisation of Glastonbury, there weren't going to be any more Glastonburys. I mean,
yeah, it was either put up the
police and
fence,
authorities had said,
yeah, it was either put the
can't
fence
have
up or not have
300,000.
it.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of, it's weird. I was doing some chatting about the book earlier today, and a lot of people were asking me about, oh yeah, but festivals just become so commercialised. Like, well, they kind of have to survive. It's an incredibly competitive market these days, and I interviewed Rob de Bank for the book, and he very honestly said, I am still an independent festival, but I am probably going to have to go down the commercial route to survive. So what would you rather have? Would you rather have the festival or not?
Yeah, I think it's probably a balance to be struck,
yeah,
isn't
definitely.
there? I think it's very important. It's just not product placement all the time when you're doing these things.
Well,
Let me just have a look at my
don't know what
iPad
you're talking
for
about.
the next question.
What are you talking about? I mean, I have no idea what you're talking about. But like V's the obvious one about but V started off like that. It's not like it was one thing and became another. Even though it was kind of, it came off the back of this brilliant idea that Jarvis Cocker had to have a gig one place one day and another place the next. V kind of has always been this commercial beast.
Yeah.
Always has been, always will be.
It's true. I mean, there was a picture in your book from Bruno Mars playing at V, and I think it's one of only 2 I've ever been to, and I've never enjoyed it. It's just not my thing. It's horses for courses. But I remember walking past Bruno Mars playing and being quite distraught that that's what a festival could be. But again, it's somebody who sold 40 million albums, and that's what I'm talking about. Festivals are so different. It used to mainly just be either a ridiculous mismatch of bands on one stage in a field, or it would be very linear towards this is the subject you want. But now there's festivals for pop pickers. Yeah. There's festivals for people that like only Blue Note jazz.
Yes, there is a festival for every genre of music, and then there is festivals for people who like every genre of music. That's a hard thing to achieve, and I think it's actually harder for the festivals to survive that are purely one genre.
Yeah. Okay. If you write a book on festivals, you must be held accountable for the bad side of festivals. So bad
Can we not
festival
talk about
experiences.
we and weather, please?
Huh?
Can we not talk about
God, yeah.
we and weather? Because
It's
like,
romanticised,
guys, we
isn't
live
it?
in the
Yeah.
UK. We don't live like, on the desert plains of Palm Springs where Coachella is. It's like, we have unpredictable weather. As soon as you get that in your head, and do you know what? It's probably going to rain. If you get anything better than that, bonus.
Yeah, but everybody knows for a fact, right, that
it's part of the whole experience.
whatever God exists, if a God does exist, he doesn't like Glastonbury because it's sunny for the whole month and then it rains for just those 3 days. The amount of times we've worked at Glastonbury and went, it's been sunny for 3 bloody weeks.
Yeah. It's to separate, the hardcore festival-goer from the I'm going home.
Or it's a sign that they don't have adequate drainage at Glastonbury. I think we do romanticise a bit. Everybody has a festival moment where they go, I am never coming back here again. And it's just about every festival we go to, but it's eclipsed. You have that moment in your tent when it's either disgusting in the tent and you're just, and it's just like, why am I even here? Or the worst is when it's really hot and you're just sweating in your tent. You feel like you're sort of Michael Jackson in his oxygen tent at night. You're like, I gotta get out of here. And we romanticize about it because there's that moment, isn't there, when that band are playing. And I remember seeing a band called It's Joe and Danny at Glastonbury, and I was sitting and I went up to see the guy who now is very, very famous, but wasn't back then. Was the lead singer of the Frames, Glenn Hansard, was playing acoustic, and then It's Joe and Danny were playing. Quite liked them. They were on David Holmes' label, I think, at the time where he was doing it. And they had a great song. I'm blabbering, but let me get to the point. I was sitting there watching them. There's maybe like 50 people. And a woman sat down beside me and she read my tarot cards, which I am not that person. I don't believe in tarot. I don't believe in all that. But at that moment, sitting just nice and happy with a cider, watching It's Joe and Danny, that's worth the 2 hours in a tent. For someone else, it would be singing Hey Jude as Paul McCartney headlines, Pyramid Stage or whatever. Yeah. It's those key moments that make a festival for me. And you can put up with no bog roll, and you can put up with a terrible tent. You can put up with idiots.
See, I don't think I can't remember one time where I've said I'm not coming back.
Oh, really? Oh.
I did I'm just a glutton for punishment because I even did Glastonbury 2 weeks after having a C-section.
No.
It's like...
Was that Chelsea's football ground? What's that? C-section. Oh, right, after you had your kids. Right, I get that now. Have you had a discover a band moment where you just...
Yeah, Savages.
Yeah, and then you know...
That was one of them. That was on the introducing stage at Hackney, and I was mesmerised by them, and by her and by her kind of presence as well. And it's interesting you saying about that kind of sing-along moment. I interviewed loads of bands for the book, and if you've got a hard copy of the book, you can get there's an app that comes free with it, and within those little bits through the book, there's some clips of the interviews, and Damon Albarn is someone that I interviewed for the book. And one of the things that he said, he was very candid about his experience of festivals, not just with Blur, but with Gorillaz and Good, the Bad and Queen, all that kind of stuff as well. And he said that when Blur first headlined Glastonbury, not the main stage, but what was the NME, I think Melody Maker stage at the time, he said he had a moment halfway through the set where he kind of allowed himself to kind of look at the crowd and really look at the crowd. And he had a kind of epiphany where he, at that moment, realised the power of song at a festival and how it's important what you play. It's important the set that you create.
You cannot go in as a band and go, we've got a new album. We've got 11 albums that you know, but we've got one that you don't, and we're going to play all of that new album. By the way, it's not out for 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Can't do it at a festival. No.
Some artists kind of do it, and you know, it's not going down well.
So the festival rules are: get your set right.
Yeah.
If you're a band.
Yeah.
Well, the shadow of a doubt, that's what you've got to do. I'm going to bring in a festival rule here, which is: don't see 2 bands, see 1. Don't go, I'm going to see the start of this band and the end of that band, because you've missed the start of one and the end of the other. So you're not on that journey. You're not seeing their set as it is.
Yeah, and
did I just actually say on that journey? I'm going to take that back and reword that.
Can you say organic as well at some point as well?
You're not part of the project, but you've got to see it, I think, from you've got to stick with one set. I know this is a podcast. Any festival virgins listening to it and you're going, don't see half of the headliner on one stage and half on the other. Just stick with one.
But don't make too many plans either, because...
Don't make any.
Well, you know, there's obviously bands that you want to see that are on the bill, but just leave space open, because, you know, that great old British weather, if it does rain, you'll find yourself running into a tent and discovering something that you've never heard before, and it'll become your favourite new thing. Or it's just the best way to discover new bands, because there's something about that shared experience in that environment that you just witness it differently from anywhere else.
Bring your own toilet roll, I think.
Wet wipes always good.
Wet wipes, toilet roll, bring all that. Any other rules to the festivals that you think this is what you must...
Layers.
You must do.
Layers are good.
Yeah.
So they kind of allow you to kind of cope with any weather situation, so layers are always good.
What festival now, right, so give me the festival that, if you could go to any festival in the world, the one you go to on your own.
Yeah.
And any festival you go to in the world with your family. 2 very different experiences. Because it's stupid to ask you for your favourite, because there's a million.
There's a festival in Barcelona that used to be in the old town part, so you'd kind of wander through windy streets and come across then turn a corner, come across a vast open space where there'd be a stage in Primavera. And they've recently moved the site, and I haven't been to the new site, but I love their music policy. I think they have one of the best lineups around the world. So Primavera in Barcelona, I'd go to on my own and have a nice wee weekend.
No, you're not bringing the kids to
Barcelona.
That. No,
and then kids festival.
Yeah.
Festivals. I mean, Camp Festival obviously is the kid equivalent of festival, but I took my 6-year-old son to festival last year. Just the 2 of us went, and we had the best time. I let him dictate the day to me.
Is there loads of kids there?
There's quite a lot of kids there, yeah.
Just make a note. Avoid festival.
You're great with kids.
I know. They like me. I don't like them.
Kids.
Last thing you want at a things you don't want near you at a festival, kids, and other place, planes, you don't want kids near you in a plane. I go to a festival, I want to forget the weekend, shall we just say.
Why do you not want kids by?
No,
Seeing a festival through a kid's eye is exactly how you should allow yourself to experience the festival. Leave everything at that gate. Your daily worries, your concerns, whatever worries and concerns you have in this brain, hand over your ticket and leave all that at the door. Go in there and allow yourself to be childlike and to have fun and be silly and be stupid.
A lot of the book is from the point of view of being in the crowd, being in various parts of the site, in every corner of the site, getting there, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But obviously then you've got on that side the privilege of seeing it from the other side. Yeah. Well, we've done I mean, we've been just all over Glastonbury working together, and you've done a lot more beyond that. But it's a blessing and a curse in a way, because sometimes you just want to be out there. But we've seen it from the other side, good and bad. There's the bands. It's unbelievable. The bands, riders, demands, backstage area, and it's that thing when you got the porta cabins for all the other bands. Then the headliners sometimes have their own area, which is bigger than our houses. Like, it's unbelievable.
They have 5 porta cabins.
Yeah.
The Tina Park's one of the few festivals actually where they have every stage. There's not kind of dressing rooms behind each stage. The whole dressing room area is for the whole festival. So all the bands are in one dressing room area, which is really nice, and it's got a lovely kind of atmosphere in it. But the funny thing about riders is, being married to a musician who has a rider,
Diva.
The riders aren't necessarily made up by the bands.
No, they usually be an office taking.
They're normally made up by the tour managers or the managers. Sometimes they'll go, listen, can I get a wee bit of like guacamole on there or whatever? Do you know what I mean?
People are like, oh, hark at him. You're in Scotland now. That's the guacamole. So the best thing I've ever seen was a kid that drives about all the artists, and they treat him terribly. Not in that way. He's a runner, and runners in TV and runners at festivals, they get like 20, 30 quid a day, and they just get all the dog's body jobs. And he used to pick bands up and fly him about, and he'd go and pick up a woman, and he went down to pick up a woman who was Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine's mum, it turned out.
Amazing.
Who came to Leeds.
Brilliant.
And Zach De La Rocha got on the same buggy and went, I'll come up. They were on next, they were headline at Leeds. I'll come up to the main stage. They drive up to the main stage, and Zach's mum gets off, and Zach De La Rocha gets off and turns around to the kid and goes, I say kid, he was like 17, 18. What are you doing? And he went, well, I'm going to pick another bands up. And he went, no, you're not. You're my mum's personal bodyguard now for the rest of the night. Come with me. And he went, I can't. He was like, don't you worry. Zach De La Rocha says. And he took this kid who'd just been running about the festival. He took him and put him right behind the amp stack. And this kid was like, oh my God. Just looking out at all of Leeds, just beside Zach De La Rocha, you know.
Amazing.
Which was brilliant. And those little moments are good. The opposite of that would be some bands are a little bit more, as we know, demanding.
And difficult to interview. We've had
a few.
I mean, it's funny, someone asked me the other day about what's your worst experience of interviewing a band at a festival. And I said it wasn't the worst experience, it was probably the most colourful. Do you know
it's got to be Primal Scream, Glastonbury, Did they accuse someone of being a Nazi, didn't they? And then,
Basement Jacks.
And then,
Manny and Bobby from Primal Scream, they let's just say they'd been enjoying themselves. And they came on to do a live interview with us on BBC Three. And they ripped Basement Jacks to shreds because they thought that Primal Scream should have been headlining. And it even went to the point on stage, do you remember that they got the plug pulled because they kept playing? Yeah. Brilliant. Love them for that.
I like that, actually.
Oh, yeah, me
it's
too.
That thing
it's kind of that's what you want from bands. You want kind of, a bit of attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my point maybe about the more wholesome festivals where, you're not going to get any controversy at those. Do you know what I mean? It's all organic tofu. Yeah, exactly. Are we allowed to swear in this, or do we get in trouble? I've got a story that has the F word on it. Can I get an up or down? We're okay. Good. Okay.
Was that an up?
That was a thumbs up.
Wow.
for fuck. Thanks. It was the opposite of Zach De La Rocha and the kid. And I don't think it was I think it was the year after, but Metallica had a hell of a rider, and they had a hell of a setup and a hell of a stage. And not even criticising them for that, I'm just saying that there was an area marked out on the stage that nobody was allowed to walk on. And that's kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, especially when other bands against them were brilliant to work with, like when the Killers were there and stuff like that, same weekend. So there was this thing with that. It wasn't, again, not the band, but their tour manager who runs about setting everything up. He was just rude all the time, and the staff, they're working 22-hour days, setting the stage up. They've been there for 2 weeks, and it was just this thing where you can't back chat, right? So I DJ in between the bands at Leeds on the main stage, done about 14 years, and it was like, what are you doing here? I DJ between the bands. Don't you cause any move to the, all that type of stuff. Anyway, so there was an area that they could only walk on, and Metallica came out and played. Weren't very good, by the way. Played too long. Anyway,
I didn't watch them. I watched them.
You don't play 2.5 hours at a festival. Don't be so self-indulgent. Anyway, they walk off stage and they've gone now. There's nothing you can do. They've played. You don't have to be nice to them. And the tour manager said to one of the main roadies, this big guy, said to him, "This is Metallica's walkway. I've told you twice." And he just went, "Listen, mate, fuck off." It was great. And those 2 words, he spoke for every member of the crew. So what you get to see backstage is very different at festivals, very different stories.
Yeah, and it was quite funny. Noel Gallagher, when I was chatting to him about the book, said that because he loves Glastonbury, he gets his staff to kind of book out Glastonbury even if he's not playing, sort of thing. He loves going to Glastonbury, which I just find brilliant. And he went last year, and he went, didn't watch a band. I was like, how come? And he went, well, I say that. He says, I went up and watched first half of Metallica's first song because Lars is my mate. And then he said, and prior to that, he went, I went up to watch Sabian, but that bloody production that they had meant I couldn't watch Side of Sade. So he's like, sod that.
That's such a good point, you know, when you go and see a band, and I'm not sure it matters huge amount, the amount of money. Some bands spend every penny they earn at a festival on the stage setup. They think, a lot of them it's because they're thinking, we're only going to do this once. The Darkness spent an absolute fortune when they headline Leeds and Reading, and it finished with them wheeling out a massive, like 12-foot cake that said The Darkness with sparklers on it, as Love Lifts Us Up Where We Belong, played by Jennifer Warnes and Bill Medley. And others just simple. What do you prefer? What are the best festival moments when they throw everything at it? The lasers, the Coldplay green lasers.
It depends, because I remember, for me, the thing that springs to mind when you mention that is Muse at Reading, when they did the whole Origins of Symmetry, where it was a kind of almost like a conceptual kind of performance where they did the whole album and then a few other hits kind of at the end. That was amazing because the whole stage was like the front cover. Arcade Fire were the same. You know, they had this amazing kind of stage setup.
All the cameras on their faces and all that was being shot at the time.
For some it really works, and then you think of things like, you know, like Arctic Monkeys, all they have to do is just get up and play. They don't need any kind of anything else.
I like
for some it works.
I like a carpet.
Richard Ashcroft always loved the carpet.
Some bands put a carpet down.
Yeah.
I don't want to end on a negative before we take questions. I know we're way over at the moment. Is a one-day festival in Hyde Park, is it allowed to call itself a festival? Or should there be... Are they festivals? One day, when you can leave, right, when you can leave...
You can leave any festival
and
after a day.
stay in a 5-star hotel on the edge. There's no suffering going on there at these London festivals. There's no sacrifice to the cause.
You can leave...
I think they should be called gatherings.
Well, you can leave any festival after a day. You can go any festival a day and you can find a 5-star hotel within a few hours drive to go and stay in. So why should it not be called a festival? It's a different type of festival, of course it is. But
yeah, but nobody's getting food poisoning. You know?
I think they probably are.
Might be actually been to some rough ones.
I think they probably are, but no festival is a festival without a fresh donut.
I'm trying to think of the things we haven't touched on yet, which is...
Donuts.
What about early raves? Because to me, they deserve a place in festival history.
Yeah, they do.
You know, the early... I remember the mixtapes we used to listen to, and we didn't really know much outside
That's
of Joey
Global
Belgium.
Gathering and things grew out of that and stuff.
Dance music deserves its place in this conversation. It seems quite industry now, and the audience has aged a bit. Yeah,
there's a whole chapter in the book about dance festivals and how... You know, dance festivals have overtaken a lot of mainstream festivals in the way that, you know, and you look at someone like Annie Mac, who set up her own festival in Malta this year and stuff, and kind of dance music is an important part of any festival. And you look at Glastonbury, how it had a dance tent and now it has a dance village. And, you know, you look at the lineups, and the Chemical Brothers are an example of a dance act that have headlined the a stage at Glastonbury on several occasions. So dance music is a massive part of festival culture, and those dance-specific festivals, they kind of cater for very specific things, I think, as well. And then you have something like Parklife that kind of started off as a dance festival and has kind of almost gone the opposite way of the traditional festival and encompassed indie music and stuff within its realm.
What I like about dance festivals in particular is they're completely drug-free. They've always had that going
clean as a whistle
throughout the decades. You know, more power to them for that. Now, favourite festival doesn't really work because there's all different types of festivals. But when you were writing the book, did you come back to any performance that became like the yardstick for how you judged everything else? And sometimes it's not that they were the best band you've ever seen at a festival. It's a good moment for you as well. You're in a good place when you say it. That's just as important. Yeah,
there was a couple actually. Weirdly, you mentioned Zach, but when Rage Against the Machine played at T in the Park, that was a massive thing for me because I remember being about I was a teenager and seeing them on the White Room. Do you remember the White Room that Mark Gladwell?
You know why they called it that?
And they were on that, and I was kind of like, who the hell is this? And being a fan, you know, we played out DJing so many times, always play Killing in the Name of when I'm out DJing. And I never thought I'd get the chance to see them live. And that was kind of like such a massive life fulfillment that I got.
One of the few, though, that didn't disappoint when they got back together as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So them, and then, I mean, probably that Blur reunion at Glastonbury was a really big, yeah, it was so that the atmosphere was like, it was like being at a family reunion. It was weird.
Do you want to make you feel sick, then?
No,
My
don't
first
tell me.
ever festival, 1994.
I mean, I'd seen Blur before at a festival.
Trip to Tipperary, the Fela, it was called, 94.
Yeah.
On the one afternoon, Rage Against the Machine and Blur, back to back. Yeah.
But this year I get to tick off another one of those to see bands, Fleetwood Mac, Isle of Wight.
Oh, it'll be amazing, but I saw them.
Oh, here we go.
In Vegas. This is really reaching the common man. I saw them in Vegas at Christmas, just there.
With Christine.
Just there.
With Christine.
No, with Carney.
Christine's back for Isle of Wight.
Oh, yes, I thought you meant my mum.
Yeah,
my mum. No, it was the full band. And they played for like, contradict what I said earlier, one of the few bands that played for like 3 hours.
Yeah. In Vegas, you expect them to.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's some bands who've been around a lot longer that really show so-called harder, younger bands how to play live. And it is unbelievably good. Unbelievable. You can absolutely love it. It's as visceral as I'd imagine they would have been back in the day. Like because of the relationships on stage, they just can't hide. They can't hide all the turmoil and the drug addictions, and even now when they play, absolutely amazing.
But then also seeing someone like Dizzy Roscoe on the main stage at Glastonbury as he was just about to release Bonkers, and hearing him play that and seeing the reaction in that crowd, it was insane.
That video went to, he did Bassline Junkie for the first time. He said, I've just written this song, and he banged that. It was amazing. Right, let's take questions from the audience.
Yeah, after doing all the research of all these festivals, are you slightly tempted to start your own or curate one?
I am.
Pick and mix.
No. From doing all the interviews, you kind of it's so much work. It's such a massive beast. But I've been asked to curate a few things at Festival Number 6 this year. Curate some film stuff for them. And the great thing about Festival Number 6 is they have a house orchestra and a house male Welsh choir. So I'm trying to think of ways that we can maybe kind of do some kind of soundtrack score thing with someone. So yeah, but it's such a beast. So yeah.
All tomorrow's parties was the
ATP?
kind of definitely changed festivals, because they all of a sudden had like Bell and Sebastian picking the whole lineup for the whole day.
Well, yeah, that kind of came off.
Mogwai picked the whole day and stuff.
Yeah, that started off from the Bowley weekend, which was Bell and Sebastian's thing.
That's right. Yeah.
And then it became ATP, which there's not ATP happening in the UK at the minute, but it's happening in Iceland and stuff. But you saying about that whole thing about December being the only month, ATP kind of normally happens around December, January time, so you've got that whole year.
Non-stop. Right, who's next?
Hiya.
There you go, right down the front there.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hiya.
I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Nice to meet you. I was wondering, because of new technologies, obviously, bands don't make as much money as they used to anymore. But still, you said that a small independent festival had to go down the commercial way. Why do you think there's not more festival-goers nowadays? Why do you think not more people are being interested in festivals?
I think more people are, to be honest. Otherwise, there wouldn't be more festivals. So I think two questions there. Bands, the only way that bands really make money is from touring and doing festivals really anymore. So that's where they make their money. So they want to play as many festivals as they possibly can. And I think that, you know, when I was growing up, there was Glastonbury. That was the only festival that kind of was around. NT and Reading and Leeds was around, and they weren't accessible. Now festivals are incredibly accessible, and you've got, you know, you have them on so many different scales that I think that there's actually probably more festival goers. Now, how old are you? Sorry if you don't mind me asking. 21. I mean, you probably don't remember a time where there weren't festivals around. Festivals have been around for your entire life, so they're part of your your culture. We expect them now.
Used to need a camel and 2 horses to get to the festival back in the day. It was awful. Oh God, it was awful. Like, especially growing up in Ireland, getting to festivals. Tell you where I
they
really
have
agree
camels
with
in
you.
Ireland?
There's not enough different types of people turning on the festivals. I find the audience can be a little middle class at times, and I'm not sure. I think if you go to a good old dirty ska festival, you know, I think you get a really nice mixed audience. Sometimes there's more diversity on the stage than off it at festivals, you know. And I think I've always thought that, and I always think that some of the bigger ones do price themselves out for everybody as well. I would love to see some form of system where maybe, I don't know whether it could be a precedent, because you have to go, I think, the more the boutique ones that you've written about in the book too, for affordability. Some of the big major ones now, it's a lot of money. If you've 2-3 kids, I don't know where you find that. I don't know where you find the 400 or 500 quid.
You
Probably
can say the
6
same
for the
thing
weekend.
about a football match, though.
No, totally,
I mean, it's like,
but that is also pricing out.
Yeah. But I think
huge
that
sections
you're not going to.
there
are a lot of
community.
festivals. There are a lot of festivals that are not just for middle class people. There's festivals that cater for every music fan for all ages, and you know, you need to kind of look at those, probably the slightly smaller ones, in terms of finding something that's a bit more niche. But
Wouldn't it be great though for a year though if a festival like Glastonbury, which I am absolutely all for the wall, and I've been there when there's 250, 300,000 people, and I've been how scary it was when the rain came down and people died that year, and people forget about that. And I'm all for monitoring people coming in, but imagine if one year a headline band said, we're not going to take the million because we don't need it.
They don't get paid a million at Glastonbury.
300,000, 400,000.
Not even. Not even
There is that much. I get more than that today.
There is a capped. That's the thing that people don't. That's the thing that people don't realise about Glastonbury. It's a very small amount of money in comparison to other festivals, where, like, for Reading and Leeds, you get
the mill.
Yeah.
What if a band said, you know what, we're going to just leave the mill for this year and we're going to lottery X amount of tickets? That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Find a band that would do that. And
I think Glastonbury could do that. That's within the wills to say
they're
this
not getting the
amount of
mill,
tickets.
so there's no point.
Yeah.
It would have to be something like Reading and Leeds.
Or 3 or 4 bands come together. Dolly Parton, give your money back.
Give them your fee for DJing in between the bands.
I don't care that much.
And then the ticket prices could come down. There you go.
I wish. Right, next, anything goes. Don't be shy. I'm not leaving here until you, sir, ask a question in your amazing jacket.
Why don't you ask him where he got his jacket?
We'll be here all night. The doors will be locked. I don't care if it's even like... There you go.
Such a bully, isn't he?
My name's Solomon. Thanks for the compliment.
Hello, mate.
Hi. If you could invent your own festival, like a most unique, most amazing festival ever, for your own bands, with your own kind of setting, what would it be? And also, for somebody who's not been to a festival before,
oh man, you've got to go.
I know, I need to go.
Which one?
Which one do you think is the best festival?
We can all decide.
Okay, what? Give me sort of 3 or 4 of your favourite artists.
Or genre.
I have a few.
Just throw some at me.
So, Drake.
Yeah.
Let's think what else.
What were the last things you downloaded?
Let's face it, this guy ain't going anywhere that's really muddy in that jacket, right?
Do you know where he's going in that jacket? He's going to Festival. That's where you're going. You're going to Festival.
He's a sharp dresser. He wants to be in an area maybe where he can glamp.
Festival.
Or there's a shower. He wants a shower. This guy wants a shower, I think.
Well, this is the thing, is like, you cannot use camping as an excuse to not go to a festival anymore.
You bloody can.
You can't, because every festival offers up any form of accommodation that you want. So get yourself the Festival, I would suggest, sir, and you will have a rare time. In terms of my festival, my dream festival, my dream festival would be...
Where do you hold it?
It would be in Scotland. It would
rethink that part of it. Just have a...
Oh, don't be all kind of stereotypical about the weather in Scotland. It would be on the west coast of Scotland in Argyll, down near a place called Campbelltown, and you look across and see Jura. It's where Paul McCartney's farm is and where he wrote Mulligan Tower and all that kind of stuff. And
please tell me he'd headline and play Mulligan Tower.
Blackbird was written down there as well.
Beautiful.
So I'd have Paul McCartney playing. I would have, oh man, I hate answering this question. Just from what I'm listening to at the minute, the new Chemical Brothers stuff I mentioned earlier is phenomenal.
They may be in the running for best festival band ever.
Yeah, but I would have them with every guest artist they've had doing a vocal, so they would all be there. So that's
even Ian Brown.
Even Ian Brown,
Okay.
of course, and then he could do Fear.
Would Ian Brown wear an Ethiopian tracksuit like you did last time I saw him play at the festival? It was
Probably.
amazing.
Probably.
Yeah.
Who
Would you
else?
ban fun fairs? Would you ban fun fairs? I'm sick of that.
I would ban the inverted bungee jump.
Yeah, what's
Not
that
the big
about?
wheel. The big wheel's nice.
I know.
The big wheel's good for like a kind of
No.
comedy interview situation.
Well, okay, the
I
big
don't know
wheel
if you
can
bands
stay.
going around it,
Look,
but not the inverted bungee
Yeah.
jump. I mean, surely it's just full of wee and sick.
Anything that when Radiohead are playing fake plastic trees, you don't hear somebody going,
Don't
"Way!"
leave me high.
Yeah, exactly. You see someone fight. Yeah, get rid of all that. Things you get rid of, I think, is probably as
Just the
important. I reckon.
inverted,
Yeah.
inverted
Get rid of that.
bungee jump.
I would definitely relax security a little bit on in terms of crowd surfing. I think everybody should crowd surf once in their life. So I would actually, I would give people
Safety's
a badge.
also a big issue.
You're allowed one. No, but you're allowed
Yeah.
one crowd surf, right? And you get a little badge. You've done it once, do it again, you're dead. But that one, we'll give you a pat in the back and allow you to go.
Okay.
Oh, make sure you crowd surf wherever you go.
In that jacket.
I don't even go to festival, crowd surf over the prams. The feeling's amazing.
There's not many prams at best.
Okay. Anyone else? There you go. Brilliant stuff.
I think this is the last question, isn't it?
Hi, my name is Orion. Sorry for the English accent, which is weird.
Where
Very
you
good.
from?
Where are you from?
Switzerland.
Okay.
Oh, lovely.
My Swiss is awful, so you're ahead of us. So don't apologise.
Yeah.
Do you speak French or German?
French.
Okay.
So about camping and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any stories where you would like half amused and half scared? Because sometimes it can get a bit messy.
Yeah.
For example, one day I arrived at 2 a.m. in my campsite and the tent was gone.
Yeah.
Like someone decided it was not the right place, so they just moved it around.
My friend Lana and Carlin, who Colin knows very well, were being very kind and offered to put my tent up because I was working. This is 10 years ago at Glastonbury. And they were like, we'll put your tent up for you. You know, next to theirs in our little kind of, you know, that thing where you all face each other and you've got your little kind of communal bit in the middle. And so we, you know, finished work, went out, went and saw some bands and stuff. In the bar, like, oh, let's go back. So we were outside, you know, long story short, in the tent. Woke up the next morning, it was the Glastonbury where the tents were kind of, you know, being taken off in a river. And they'd forgotten to put, I mean, it's about that size, just a tiny little bit that goes over the air vent on the top of the tent. It's just a tiny little thing they'd forgotten to put on. And Tom was like, don't move! And we woke up and I was like, I thought there was like someone about to fall on our tent or in our tent. And there was about to have this massive rush of water come into our sleeping bag if we kind of like moved.
Because
it was just getting deeper and deeper, and it was like if we kind of moved suddenly, we just had gushed in the sleeping bag. So yeah, but you know, you can look back and laugh now. Everything else was sodden. Like everything else in the tent was sodden.
that's the rite of passage in that moment when you're miserable and you see that one band play that one song. And you go, that's okay. I'm okay to be like, yeah.
That's all right.
Owen's got diarrhea from a sweet corn.
Oh God. Are we really going to end on your diarrhea?
I'm just saying, I don't look back on that and laugh. You said you can always look back and laugh.
Are we really going to look back on your diarrhea?
I've never looked back on that and laughed. Has anyone got any more? There you go, fantastic. We're all night eat. Forget about your kids. We're staying until there's no questions left.
This question is coming from the interpreter. Hello.
Oh, amazing.
Edith, I've never ever heard of all these festivals. It's been really fascinating to watch, but I'm just really curious. Parents bringing their children, aren't they really worried about their children going deaf, coming back not being able to hear?
That's a very good point.
We get proper ear defenders. You can buy proper ear defenders for your children, and it's not like you don't take them right in front of the speakers. You keep them in safe environments.
It's very different, isn't it, now? There's Steve Lamac's book was called Going Deaf for a Living. We're that kind of last generation of DJs that there was no guidelines for your hearing.
Yeah.
After us, literally, like, because I was one of the first ones signed the health and safety form that waived all, I couldn't sue the BBC
if you
for
went
having
deaf.
headphones up loud, because at that stage I needed them louder. And we were that last, but the modern day is so much different now. They're all half volume. Everyone takes care of their hearing.
You'd be fine if you went to Reading Festival because it's so quiet that you don't need to wear ear defenders.
That's true. That's why Leeds is better than Reading. If you've got the choice of Leeds or Reading, go to Leeds.
Leeds is amazing,
because it's much louder. There's less restrictions, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
On that.
Thank you for your question. I hope you go to a festival.
Has anybody got a festival memory that they? We've been talking about them here, an unlikely festival memory, or that they'd like to share, rather than a question.
I think they're tarnished by all years, to be honest.
Oh, I once went to a jazz festival in Toronto.
That wasn't a cue for another one.
This is very quick, right? I went to a jazz festival in Toronto, and I've gotten into my jazz music in the last 5 years. It makes you a really dull person. And,
no, it doesn't.
And it was a marquee, and it looked more like a gardening road show, like Charlie Dimmock was about to get up and give a speech. And really just tepid and just stale environment. And Dave Brubeck was playing, who is a genius, but is probably best known for this. It's called Take 5.
Yeah.
Loads of great songs. But he was an off-key pianist, basically. He could play off rhythm and off-key. He was amazing. But he died about 6 months after this gig. And it took him 5 minutes to get on the stage. He was so old. I think he was 92 or 82. I can't remember at the time. It took so long. And he sat at that piano and he blew that room away. Like, he blew that room away. People were hanging from the ceilings, throwing their chairs out of the way. That, festivals do that. You never know when it's going to throw up that moment. I floated home from that. And
I still kind of feel like I've still got a lot more moments to experience, to be honest. That's why I kind of hope that I'm still going to them for the next 20, 30, however,
I think that's great. You are going to be that person.
I'm going to be that naked granny that we saw the very first year we went to Glastonbury. The naked granny in just Jesus sandals with a handbag. That will be me.
Yeah, and by that stage, Edith Bowman's Great British Music Festival will be on its 10th edition. So the ebook's great. We're in the Apple Store, so we should mention that. The ebook's good, probably the best way to get it. There'll be an advanced version comes out later, like an enhanced version that you get all the stuff you get with the book. If not, the book, if you like a hard copy, exclusive digital app with that, it's got all the interviews, which are probably a bit sweary, aren't they?
They're not bad, actually, but my only kind of regret with the book is that I didn't have a picture. I couldn't find a picture anywhere of you and me at the festival.
Well, don't worry about that, because the most important part of the book came quite early on. I've written this down. When you describe working with me as a golden time. So, and who could disagree with that? I'm ashamed your life's turned out so badly that is a golden time. Listen, thank you for coming.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed it. And
thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much.